Hello, friends. Welcome to Gentleman Cadet Academy GCA. Hope you all are doing good. So, today the video is regarding G7, that is the group of seven countries. It's an important lecture topic, and the questions related to this can be asked in the personal interview if this topic is in the news. And before this, I have already made lecture videos on almost every important topic. If you want to watch the videos, the link of the playlist is available in the I button. So, this video is going to be in crisp form. So, like always, without wasting any time, let us start. So, starting with the introduction, G7 means the group of seven countries, and it is one of the world's most influential multilateral forums, consisting of seven of the world's largest advanced economies. And it serves as a platform for the discussion of wide range of global issues such as economic coordination, security challenges, climate change, health, and development. And despite criticism about its exclusivity and non binding decision making process, it still continues to shape the global policy through census driven dialogue and collective action. So, it is basically an informal group of seven advanced industrialized nations, and they meet annually to discuss and coordinate policy on various issues. And the seven countries are Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, United Kingdom, and US. And in addition to the seven countries, European Union also participates in G7 discussions, bringing the number of participants to 8. And it does not have a permanent secretariat or formal structure, but the presidency rotates annually among member states, with host countries setting the summit's agenda. Now let us talk about the historical background of G7. So G7 was established in the 1970s during a period of global economic turbulence, and it was initially formed as a group of 6 in 1975 following the collapse of Bretton Woods system and the global oil crisis. Canada was invited to join the group in 1976, expanding it to G7, and the group was initially focused on economic coordination among leading Western industrialized nations. And in 1997, G7 expanded to include Russia, becoming the group of 8. However, following Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014, it was suspended from the group, and the G7 returned to its original seven members. So, while the G7 began as an economic forum, over the years, its agenda has expanded to include a broad range of global challenges, including international security, environmental issues, global health, and social justice. Now, let us talk about the key areas of focus for G7. So, G7 plays a central role in coordinating global responses to a variety of challenges. The very first is global economic governance. So, G7 remains a pivotal platform for coordinating global economic policy, particularly during the time of economic instability. And the group's annual summit serves as an opportunity for the world leaders to discuss economic growth, trade policies, and global financial stability. Second is financial crisis response. So the G7 has been instrumental in responding to major global financial crises such as 2008 global financial crisis, and it also coordinated with global economic stimulus packages, provided support for international financial institutions like the IMF, International Monetary Fund. Then the third is trade and investment. So G7 advocates for free trade and open markets, and it has played a key role in supporting the World Trade Organization and advancing trade agreements that promote global economic integration. Then the next is the climate change and environmental leadership. So climate change has become a central issue for the G7, with the group leading international efforts to reduce carbon emissions, transition to renewable energy, and promote environmental sustainability. Then the next is net zero emissions. So G7 has committed to achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2015, aiming to curb the global warming and reduce the impacts of climate change. Then the next is climate finance. So G7 has emphasized the importance of financial support for developing countries to help them transition to a cleaner energy sources and also to adapt to climate impacts. Then in terms of global health and pandemic preparedness, it has become an increasingly important focus for the G7, especially in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic. The group has played a key role in global health governance, including the distribution of vaccines, pandemic preparedness, and strengthening health system worldwide. Then the last is security and counterterrorism. So G7 plays an important role in shaping international security, and the group addresses a wide range of issues including regional conflicts, threat of terrorism, nuclear proliferation, and the rise of cyber threats. And it has been a strong advocate for nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation, promoting efforts to reduce the number of nuclear weapons globally. Then talking about cybersecurity, so with the increasing prevalence of cyber attacks, G7 has made cybersecurity a key focus, advocating for international norms, stronger cybersecurity defenses, and the protection of critical infrastructure from cyber threats. Then, talking about the decision making process and structure of G7. So, G7 operates on a consensus based model, meaning the decisions made during the summits are typically non binding and rely on agreement among all the members. And this lack of formal decision making power is both a strength and limitation of G7. And leaders meet annually to discuss main global issues, but these meetings are more about coordination and setting political agendas. And throughout the year, G7 engages in smaller meetings and working groups on specific topics such as trade, security, and climate change. Then now let us talk about the criticism and limitations. So while the G7 is an influential forum, it has faced various criticism and limitations over the years. The very first is exclusion of emerging economies. So G7 represents only a small subset of global population and economy, with emerging powers such as China, India, Brazil, and South Africa. They have increasingly played a significant role in global affairs. So critics argue that G7's decision-making process does not sufficiently take into account the perspectives and the needs of global South. Then talking about non-binding nature, so because the G7 operates without legal enforcement mechanism, its decision often lack the power to compel action. Then finally moving to the G7's role in a multipolar world. So as we know, the global order is shifting toward multipolarity with the new centers of power emerging in countries such as China and India. So this poses both challenges and opportunities for G7 as it seeks to maintain its relevance in the face of changing geopolitical landscape. So G7 increasingly works along with G20, which is a broader forum that includes major emerging economies. So while the G7 remains a powerful voice in global governance, the G20 represents a more inclusive platform for addressing global issues. And the rise of countries like China, Russia, and other global powers has led to the increasing tensions in global diplomacy. And G7's relationship with these countries have become more complex, especially in areas such as trade, human rights, and military. Then talking about reforms of global institutions. So G7 advocates for the reform of global governance institutions such as the United Nations Security Council and World Trade Organization to better reflect the multipolar nature of the world and growing influence of emerging economies. Then finally in the conclusion I can say, so the G7 continues to be a vital forum for addressing the most pressing global challenges from economic crisis and climate change to global health and security threats. While it faces criticisms of exclusivity and limited enforcement power, its role in shaping international policy remains significant. So, as the world order shifts towards multipolarity, so the G7 will need to adapt, working more closely with emerging economies and multilateral organizations like G20, and its ability to remain relevant in a changing world will depend on its capacity to promote inclusive global governance and build cooperation on the most critical issues of the 21st century. So friends, this is all about G7 in short. I hope this video will be helpful for you. So until then, keep learning, keep watching, and keep supporting. Thank you and best of luck.